Bellator 273. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. Main event between Ryan Bader and Valentin Moldavsky for the world heavyweight title in Bellator. Fun fight. Decent card. We'll go through each one, give the predictions and some betting tips for you guys. Smash that like button, guys. Let's get at least 150 likes on this Bellator betting breakdown. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and turn those post notifications on. And let's start it off with the first fight of the night. It is Parrish, the Big Tuna, versus Sullivan Cauley. I have to go with the Big Tuna underdog in this matchup, but he's definitely in for a test with Sullivan Cauley because Cauley brings a pretty good wrestling game. He's unbeaten in MMA. Granted, not a lot of experience, only 2-0. Still, the factor that really stands out to me is that high-level wrestling background. Also training with Ryan Bader, the heavyweight and former light heavyweight champion. But Parrish is overall a more seasoned mixed martial artist. I really like the standing game of Parrish, the Big Tuna. I like the way he kickboxes. He has pretty good hands. He's actually like sneaky fast. You see him with that pudge in the middle and that loose skin. You're not expecting a guy with the mobility. He has very high level mobility. Moves well. He has power. And I feel like he'll connect on the chin of Sullivan Cauley through this fight. I expect Cauley to try and wrestle here. He's going to have to. He might get the Big Tuna to the floor at points. I could see Big Tuna working his way up, wearing down Cauley. Cauley hasn't been late, hasn't been long. He does have a height advantage, 6'3" to 6 feet. But honestly, that could potentially play in his detriment, having to shoot lower. I think that Parrish lands some big strikes here. I think he gets the win, and I think he knocks out Cauley in the second round. Looking at the odds for this matchup, Big Tuna plus 180. In his last fight against Christian Edwards, he was a huge underdog, similar to this, versus the big favorite. And he went out and got a dominant, I mean, not really dominant, but lightning fast win. I don't think Cauley's even at that same level of Edwards. Granted, it was like a one-punch KO. Parrish has to work a bit harder here, but he still gets the knockout. I like Big Tuna Parrish for the win. Let's keep on running up. Let's get to the next fight of the night. Pretty decent Bellator bouts on the prelims here. Brennan versus Lugo. Lugo's last fight is honestly looking pretty nice now. It was a majority decision loss to Natan Levy, who won on the Contender Series and then gets, a UFC fight losing to Huffa Garcia. Brennan, submission ace. I think Brennan probably goes out there and submits him. I'm picking Brennan to win. Lugo, though, is not a bad fighter. He's got a pretty decent kickboxing game. He's relentless with his pressure. He has a pretty nice left hook straight combination. I feel like his big moments against Natan Levy show that if he lands, he can do damage. Granted, did not get the finish there. Brennan, submission ace. I think his submission game is going to be a problem for Lugo. I think that Brennan works towards takedowns, and there is a susceptibility there with Lugo. He can be put on the ground. I think that you're going to see Brennan shoot for submissions. He's a first-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he's 21 years of age. That's a ton of Jiu-Jitsu experience for a guy at 21. Super young in the game. He's got a pretty unorthodox style grappling attack. He's going to be shooting submissions up. I think he'll find one here over Lugo. I'm thinking first or second round submission. Big win for Brennan, who then will move to 6-0. 5-0 prospect. Somebody to watch at 21 years of age. That's a lot of potential there. Now, looking at the fight here, let's see what they have for the odds between these two. Brennan is a huge favorite. Minus 1,200 to the plus 1,000 underdog. I think that Brennan gets it done. Don't touch the line. Not worth it. We'll talk more about props on this week's Best MMA Bets. So we'll see if we find a valuable one when they drop. Money line here. Don't play it. Don't take that type of risk here. But Brennan for the win. I do have the favorite in this spot. The next fight of the night, Nikita Mikhailov versus Blaine Shutt. Fun fight here between two bantamweights. Shutt does have some decent level at the flyweight division outside of, Bellator UFC, but he still fought pretty solid. He beat Johnny Lopez CES, the Sean Santella fight, losing for the belt there in CFFC. So, he's had experience fighting in big fights. Nikita, young guy, 23 years of age, but has shown experience and skill set like well beyond his years. 8-1 record's pretty solid. Really slick kickboxing you get with Nikita. Also pretty fast too. I like the speed edge that he's probably going to have over Blaine Shutt in this matchup. I think Nikita goes out there and gets the win, probably doing so by a decision. I like that he's pretty well-rounded already at 23. On the side of Blaine Shutt, he's actually decently well-rounded too. He's a quick guy. He has fast hands. Wrestling background that's pretty decent. His submission skill set is there. He'll shoot for subs, but I don't think he's at the level of Nikita Mikhailov here. I feel like Mikhailov has a good showcase performance. I think he can outstrike Blaine Shutt, and then he can also probably work him over on the ground. I do think we're looking at 3 rounds of work here with Mikhailov getting a unanimous decision win. Not loving betting on this one too much either. Let's see what the odds are at. -670 plus 550. I'd call that unbettable. Don't touch the line. Don't parlay it. Don't waste your money risking it, especially on a young 23-year-old guy that is fighting 29-year-old veteran of the game. Shutt will always have a chance, especially at that big upside underdog status. Look at Victor Henry over Barzola last week. We've seen huge upsets in the past. Not necessarily worth it here, but I do have Mikhailov getting the win. The next fight is Dalton Rosta and Duane "The Rock" Johnson, not the actor / former pro wrestler. I feel like Dwayne Johnson should have went for like some cooler nickname like the Iron Rock or something, just to spin it a bit, not just doing, exactly the Rock. But doesn't matter. Let's talk the fight. I got Rosta winning here. Dwayne Johnson has a pretty good record, but kind of disappointing losses. Lost to an 0-1 Ramir Wilson, also to a 5-4 Austin Jones. Rosta is a physical specimen. He's really strong in clinch situations. He does have good wrestling. His kickboxing is pretty decent. Carries a lot of muscle, which could potentially get him tired going later. On the opposite side, Johnson is a decently tricky southpaw with some solid kickboxing. He's actually like a pretty patient attacker. Has some nice teep kicks right up the center. Granted, can be out-wrestled. I see Rosta probably doing that to him here. Something to note, Johnson's never been finished. I don't think Rosta is the guy to finish him. I feel like what we've seen from Rosta is good work over the course of 3 rounds in his past couple when the level of competition has stepped up. I expect him to win. I don't think it's an easy fight, but I think Dalton Rosta, unanimous decision over Duane Johnson. But again, a fight that the odds are hideous. We get this a lot with Bellator prelims, so you have to be super cautious betting it. No reason to go waste a lot of money at that, and then you end up getting screwed over. He loses, ends up getting upset. Dalton Rosta is still a young guy in the fight game. -679 best value, plus 550 dog Duane Johnson. Not worth touching the line on this huge favorite in Dalton Rosta, but I do expect him to go out there and win. Probably going to look closer than the odds have it for sure. When I see -700, I'm expecting a first-round wipeout. It's going to be a fairly competitive fight. Rosta for the win. Not loving the bet, but he does beat Duane "The Rock" Johnson. The next fight of the night is Saad Awad and Chris Gonzalez. This is like a jump a bit in competition level. These guys are both higher level. The prelims under this are a little lower level MMA. Not low level, but lower tier. These guys are pretty decent. Saad's been around for a really long time in Bellator. Had a bad losing streak. He's turned it up. He won his last fight, knockout opponent, Nate Andrews. And that was a guy from the PFL that was not bad there. Had wins in the PFL. On the opposite side, Chris Gonzalez is a damn good wrestler. He's only 30 years of age, training with Team Alpha Male. Lost to Yamamuchi in the last one, but Goichi is a high-level jump. That's a guy who's a master on the ground and really tricky with the stand-up game. Gonzalez has improved in striking, but his wrestling really is where he shines. He does fight well from range, granted in this spot, giving up an inch on the reach. Saad Awad, 74 inches, 73 to Chris Gonzalez. Awad is a bit awkward, too. He stands up like really upright. He has some sneaky knockout power and actually some decent submission skills as well. But I think Chris Gonzalez will come in with a patient game, slowly wear down Awad. I think we'll have a lot of respect for the OG vet. And I think that Chris Gonzalez, fighting smart, goes out there and gets a pretty decent win. Leaning towards decision. I mean, you look at Awad's last few. Decision loss, submission loss, and he did get KO'd. That's up a weight class, 170 against Paul Daly. Daly brings some real power. I don't see that with Chris Gonzalez. I don't think Gonzalez gets the finish. I think Gonzalez works him over for 3 rounds, potentially doing work from the clinch against the cage as well. I like Gonzalez for the win. Looking at the odds, Gonzalez minus 274, plus 246 Awad. So essentially you're looking at a widespread Chris Gonzalez favorite. Awad's got a lot of experience as a pro. Don't really know if I want a money line down on Gonzalez with what you're going to have to pay up front, but it's not a terrible play. I do think he wins, but I would stay on the safer side of maybe not doing it or not really attacking it too hard. Maybe some props as they drop, some over-unders will be worth it. This week's Best MMA Bets, we will go deep with the betting side on this card, especially when every prop drops and we really can play with things here. I will pick Gonzalez for a win, and I'm pretty confident he wins this fight by unanimous decision. In the next bout, this is really high-level stuff now. Featured prelim. It is Darrion Caldwell versus Enrique Barzola. Enrique was in the UFC for a while, and he has good performances and wins in the UFC. He's now fighting Darrion Caldwell, the former champion of this Bellator bantamweight division. I like this matchup. Interesting notes. We'll look at the odds immediately because I do want to pull them up. Caldwell's a dog. Plus 113, minus 127 or so, around plus 110 range for Caldwell. Barzola, the favorite. Understandably so, because Barzola brings in a really tricky wrestling base, and he's persistent with the wrestling attack, a little bit awkward with it, has an unconventional wrestling style. He's also pretty slick with the stand-up and fast. Granted, Darrion Caldwell is a beast. I'm still a believer in Caldwell's skill set. Has had some disappointments. I mean, he lost his last two, one being to Leandro Higo, who he had beaten early, their prior matchup. It is what it is. He loses a split against an improved Higo. And then AJ McKee easily beats him up a weight class at 45. At 135, Caldwell can really be a problem, especially with that 73-inch reach. He's a long guy. He's physically strong, too. I'm picking Caldwell to win. I have the upset. I'm going with the underdog here. I think he's being slept on a bit by the bookies, and I think it's because Barzola brings the UFC background. But championship level Bellator to me is beating lower level UFC tier and Enrique Barzola. I think that that Barzola is potentially tricky in clinch situations, but I think Caldwell will show a physical strength advantage. I think also a striking edge. Expect Caldwell's stand up to be on display here. I expect him to win. I think he's beaten Barzola probably by a decision. Unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of potential decisions on this card. One of the things I hope that doesn't necessarily come to fruition is a lot of these decisions. But, man, I do think we might be going long here. Could see late TKO for Caldwell, hurting Barzola and putting him down. Caldwell does have the power to do it. I think that he goes out there and wins unanimous decision, though. And I think the striking is on display. I'm going underdog, Darrion Caldwell for the win over Barzola. I think he's going to do it. And I think he's being slept on a bit by the bookies. And I'm telling you, if you wait to bet this one, I see the line getting closer. So I do think Caldwell is a pretty good underdog bet. Betting Bellator, my favorite bets there are really going to be the underdog plays. And I got Caldwell for the win as an underdog. Let's jump to the main card. If you have not yet, make sure to smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn those post notifications on. And let's talk the first fight on this Bellator main card. It's Sabah Homasi and Jaleel Willis. I like Jaleel Willis to win this fight a lot here. I think that it's a fantastic stylistic matchup for him. Homasi is a power striker who comes at his opponents with a lot of pressure. Decent wrestling, but I don't think to the level of Jaleel Willis's game. Willis is a guy that's so confident with the wrestling, he can really let the stand-up go. And I think that Sabah Homasi will be a little bit respectful of that wrestling skill set, knowing that Jaleel has it. This is going to limit the stand-up game of Homasi a bit. I see Willis putting on it and really turning up on the stand-up a bit, able to land decent strikes, and will mix in the wrestling. Now, you look at the past couple for each of them. Koreshkov, fair loss there. Koreshkov's a hell of a wrestler, hell of a fighter. And then Paul Daly, that was a fight Sabah was winning, and he had moments there, was able to beat Bobby Volker before then, Curtis Belender. I mean, he had a good thing going over in Bellator. Look at Jaleel Willis, loses to Berkmanov. That's a tricky matchup. That guy's a savage. Fight against Maycom Mendoza, wins by decision. You look, Mark Leminger beats him by decision. Dangerous wrestler. Vincius De Jesus, an LFA decision. You see a lot of decisions with Jaleel Willis. I don't think he gets the finish of Sabah, but I think he puts it on him by decision, mixing in striking and wrestling well. I like Jaleel Willis to win a unanimous decision here. Looking at the odds for this one, Jaleel Willis is about a minus 239 to plus 211. You can find it around minus 240, minus 250, depending where you go. I think the odds should be closer. I think this is like a minus 150 type favorite situation for Willis. The odds, unfortunately, are making this one that I don't want to play. I got Jaleel Willis winning. I think he does it. But you got to respect Sabah Homasi's power and experience. This guy's got 25 pro fights. He's fought in the UFC. He's fought high-level guys in Bellator. I expect Jaleel to get the win, but you got to respect Sabah, especially if you're betting on this one. Jaleel, decision. The Sabah Homasi power is real. It could land, even though Jaleel Willis has shown pretty good durability. I like Jaleel for the win by decision. Don't love the bet. Bellator's value of betting, man. They get you locked up in situations where you don't want to throw down, unfortunately. Next one, Henry Corrales versus Aiden Lee. Aiden Lee is super rangy. I like the underdog Aiden Lee in this matchup to beat Henry Corrales. We've seen Corrales beaten. Look at that. 3 out of his last 5 are losses. He lost to Johnny Cupcake Campbell, was getting hit on the feet a lot, and Campbell not necessarily known as that high level of a guy. He does beat Petropachenko, but granted, what is the true level of Petropachenko? He's got a nice record, but I don't think he's extremely high level. Also to note, Corrales 35 now. His opponent, Aiden Lee, coming into his prime at just 26. There was a win over Brandon Gertz by split decision in the meantime, but lost to Archuleta, lost to Caldwell. One thing about Corrales is he's tough. He's scrappy. He's got really fast hands. I like the kickboxing game. Will rip heavy low kicks. I do have to respect him on the feet. But when you fight a guy who's got the height advantage by 4 inches, the range advantage by 5, Aiden Lee is going to be hard to deal with for Corrales. I think he'll have a hard time getting inside. If they go to the floor, Aiden Lee has a nice jiu-jitsu game. He's pretty slick with his submissions as well. So I don't think Henry Corrales could just rely on wrestling here. I think Aiden Lee outstrikes him, connects with beautiful counters. I'll be honest, I do have a feeling that Aiden Lee will be able to find the finish here, potentially stunning Corrales and locking up a sub. I'm liking second or third round. I'd lean towards inside the distance if I was propping up Aiden Lee, but I do like Aiden Lee straight underdog bet the most here. I think he gets it done. I am riding with Aiden Lee for the win. The dog, looking at the lines, about plus 113, plus 110 for Lee. Corrales about minus 127, minus 145. It really depends where you go. I like the underdog. I think Aiden Lee wins. I think he gets it done. I think the range is the biggest difference maker here. Aiden Lee for the victory. Let's keep on running up. Next fight of the night. Benson Henderson and Islam Mamedov. Henderson, OG vet, lost to Brent Primus in the last one. Mamedov win over Brent Primus in his Bellator debut. It's interesting to match these two up, but I guess it kind of makes sense. It's not really fair to Benson Henderson, in my opinion. If I'm Bellator, I'm giving Benson Henderson fights, I don't know, that are more on the fun side. He's nearly 40 years old. You're giving him a guy who's working towards contendership in Islam Mamedov. One thing about Mamedov, grinding grappler, not extremely exciting in that debut win over Primus. Primus did more from the bottom. I'm picking Islam Mamedov to win and beat Benson Henderson here, and it's unfortunate. I'd love to pick Benson. I'd love to see an upset in this matchup. Mamedov is a grinder. He's going to look to grapple Benson Henderson and control him. Henderson will be tricky to hold and control on the ground, but I do think Mamedov will settle for clinch positions as well and will eventually find the takedowns. He's a very patient and relaxed fighter, and I think that will be a problem. There's not going to be a ton of counters opening up for Benson. Benson's the original creator of the calf kick. I do expect him to get those working a bit here, but he's just not a finisher. And if you have a guy that's not known for finishing fights in Benson Henderson versus a grinding wrestler in Islam Mamedov, I see Mamedov working him over, winning a decision in a fight that might not be all that entertaining. Though I'm picking Mamedov, the lines are ugly, man. His Bellator card has some ugly lines. Minus 370 for Mamedov, plus 325 for Benson Henderson. I'd love to tell you go bet Benson as a dog. I'd love to pick him, but I can't here. I think Mamedov wins a grinding decision. He's a huge favorite, and he's really an unappealing bet. Maybe a parlay edition. We'll talk parlays on this week's Best MMA Bets and the weigh-in recap show later on in the week. I'll go Mamedov for the win over Benson Henderson. It's unfortunate to say. I'd love to see Bendo get it done. And the main event of the evening, it's Ryan Bader and Valentin Moldavsky. If you guys haven't yet, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Bader's tricky. He's a veteran, high-level game. Striking skill set really has evolved to be good at this point. I mean, he's got serious power in his hands, known for the speed advantage at heavyweight. But across from him is Valentin Moldavsky, known as a quick heavyweight, light heavyweight. I'm picking Moldavsky to get the win. I feel like the speed is a difference maker, and the speed favors Moldavsky. Ryan Bader succeeds at heavyweight when he's faster than his opponents. You've seen his past few down a weight class at 205. Loses to Nemkov by TKO. Beats Machida on a hard-fought decision. loses to Corey Anderson quickly. Corey Anderson just blasted him out of the water. I will say, I think the weight cut has an effect on the chin of Ryan Bader at this point. I don't want to see him at 205 anymore. I want Bader at heavyweight. He does have a 1-inch height edge. He might weigh in more than Valentin Moldavsky when the fight starts, but Moldavsky more adept to fighting the bigger dudes, especially recently. When's the last time he fought a heavyweight? 2.5 years ago nearly. That was against Czech Congo. He's been fighting just at light heavyweight, making that cut. I think the size difference isn't a factor here. Speed edge leans Moldavsky, which is a problem for Ryan Bader. But this will be a better Bader than the ones we've seen. I still think Moldavsky will be tricky with the speed, lots of movement. I could see Bader picking up a couple of rounds. He's being slept on by the bookies. This is more of a dog or pass style fight as far as the betting side. But I'll tell you this, it's very hard to pick against Valentin Moldavsky here, especially training with Nemkov, who beat Ryan Bader. Similar game. Watch out for the kicks of Moldavsky. He also has some good dexterity. Could land the head kick knockout. But I'm more expecting a durable Bader to eat better shots than he did in his light heavyweight fights the past few. I think Valentin Moldavsky goes out there and wins a unanimous decision, mixing it up with combinations. Clinch situations tricky. I think Bader will be difficult to take down, but I still see Moldavsky's mobility as a problem. Bader giving up the speed here. It's pretty much like him fighting a light heavyweight, but filled out. So I expect him to do better. Moldavsky's really good as well. Still a developing guy, only 29. Bader, 38 years of age. I think Moldavsky wins by a unanimous decision, gets it done. Interesting, right? Because Fedor has said he wants to fight Ryan Bader. So hypothetically, if Bader did win, I could definitely see Fedor-Bader for the belt somehow being made. Even if Bader loses, I definitely could see Fedor as the next matchup. And let's also note, Bader quickly dispatched the Fedor in their first matchup. So, of course, Fedor wants to right that wrong. Moldavsky, though, I think he gets it done, beats Bader here, becomes the unified heavyweight champion of Bellator, which is a huge accolade. And I think he beats Ryan Bader, man. I wish that I could be jumping on the dog Bader, but I just don't think I haven't been impressed by the past couple performances, and I've been very impressed with Valentin Moldavsky. And when Bader's giving up speed at heavyweight, I'll expect more durability. I think he takes the shots and it goes long, but I think decision for Moldavsky. The line, it's so wide, man. There's nothing that I just want to jump on here, unfortunately, for this main event. Maybe you're playing Bader as a dog, but even so, his durability, I'm expecting it to be higher. Could be proven wrong, and he might go out there and get stopped by Valentin Moldavsky. That is the Bellator 273 card. Guys, please be very cautious betting Bellator. It is risky stuff, especially the lower level fights on the prelims. Save your money. Maybe play some dogs. If you have some good feelings about a favorite, you can throw down some parlay, some props, but don't throw like significant bankroll at Bellator. I think save that for the highest level, which is the UFC. Much love, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Bellator 273 breakdown. Smash that like button if you're new, subscribe, and turn the post notifications on. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and even if you don't have anything to say about the fights, but you enjoyed the video, you left a like, throw a W in the chat, and help the algorithm out. Much love, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace, guys.